So good evening, everyone. My name is Peter Gosselin. I am the ANC Commissioner for District 6, which is basically the west side of Connecticut Avenue going back to 41st Street. And my colleague, Commissioner Connie Chang, represents the other side of Connecticut Avenue going back to Nevada. This is the first of a district meetings about visions for our main street, the Upper Connecticut Avenue commercial corridor. We're happy to welcome two of our neighbors, as it turns out, my constituents on Morrison Street and Legation. Ellen McCarthy and Ron Eichner, and I'll introduce them and they'll introduce themselves in a minute. We have an hour or just a little more to conduct this session. And so what we're going to ask you to do is put your comments in the chat, and you'll see the chat button down at the bottom of your screen, and put your questions in the Q&A. If you feel your questions don't carry enough weight, just written and read by either Connie or me, then you can raise your hand when we get to the Q&A parts, and we will elevate you. Let me just set up the two speakers tonight by saying both have long experience in planning and development. Both are members of Ward 3 Vision, which is a smart growth advocacy group. I'm sure, be corrected by either Ellen or Ron, but at least the environmental argument for smart growth is that cities are environmentally sounder than exurbs and suburbs. What we want to do is try to build more densely to bring people into cities and using public transportation rather than taking polluting commutes. I will let each of the speakers introduce themselves. Ideally, what we'll do here is that Ron and Ellen will talk about kind of existing conditions on the Upper Connecticut Avenue commercial corridor. And then if you have questions about that, you can ask. And then they will present kind of their vision for a kind of 30-year vision for what our community center might look like. And then they'll have a more robust or additional Q&A period. And with that, which of you plan to go first?
I do.
Okay. So Ellen McCarthy is a resident of our community, is a former director of the Office of Planning, has been involved in a variety of planning and development efforts. Ellen, thank you for being here.
Thanks, Peter, and good evening. A brief introduction to the presentation that Ron is going to make in a few minutes. Basically, we were hearing some frustration about the Chevy Chase small area plan process, with people saying that the discussion was too abstract and they wanted to see what a plan might actually look like. So one Sunday afternoon, a few neighbors got together and we walked the study area from the Chevy Chase Circle to Legation on both sides of Connecticut Avenue. We looked at vacant or underutilized parcels that could be redeveloped to provide more diverse housing options and to provide more customers to support the shops. And so the concept that we're presenting tonight is what emerged. So maybe the best introduction to this presentation is to say what it is not. It is not the Chevy Chase small area plan. It is a concept of how properties along the avenue might change over a period of many years, assuming that the owners of those properties are willing to redevelop them or sell them to people who are able to make changes. But most of all, we hope this is a useful tool for residents and business owners to see some of the possibilities and decide what you like or don't like, and bring that knowledge to the next community-wide design workshop, which is also known as a charrette, which is the next major step after a design survey and after walks that the Office of Planning is going to be conducting over the next few weeks. But the charrette is an opportunity for everybody to come together and help shape the future of the Chevy Chase Gateway through the small area plan. That plan can contain guidelines or zoning changes to make sure that the future development conforms to what we want to see. A brief word about Ward 3 vision. We're an all-volunteer group of Ward 3 residents. A few years ago, we saw promising opportunities for positive additions to the ward, like the redevelopment of the former Outer Circle Theater on Wisconsin Avenue, get turned into nothing more than a drive-through bank, partly because potential developers who might have been interested in the site feared anti-development opponents would scuttle more ambitious plans. We saw that there was a need for those of us who knew we could demand high-quality development beneficial to the ward to band together and speak up. Now, unlike what you might have heard, we do not have developer money. In fact, we have no money. We depend on our fellow Ward 3 residents to give their time and energy to study the issues, prepare testimony, and in the case of Matt Bell, who did a lot of the work behind the plan you'll see tonight, and Ron Eichner, who worked with them on it, to donate their considerable talents to make Ward 3 neighborhoods better. And now, Ron Eichner.
Thanks, Ellen.
Ron, could I interrupt for 1 second and just say, one of the things that you're going to see tonight is actual pictures. And it is, I think it is one of the things that speaks highly of Ward 3 vision and of Ellen and of Ron, that they're willing to put their vision on the table. Nobody else has so far. So look at it with a sympathetic eye, at least in that sense. Thanks.
Thanks, Peter. And thanks to Peter and Connie for putting this together. I guess before I go on, I should just introduce myself a little bit. I have worn many hats in my long career. I've been an architect and a planner, and I'm currently a small real estate developer. And just full disclosure, I have zero business interests in this area or anywhere in Ward 3. That's I work in other parts of the city and in Maryland. So that's who I am. And also, as Peter noted, I've lived in this neighborhood for almost 50 years. So I have, like Ellen and like all of you, I have a real connection to the neighborhood. So Peter's right. We decided that we needed to look and create, look at the neighborhood and create some sort of visual image of the kinds of changes that might occur out of a small area plan. That was in part because nobody else was doing it, and in part because we were hearing a lot of talk about this becoming Bethesda or Manhattan or whatever, and we felt it was important to sort of take a look and see what it really might become. And also because as architects and planners, we're visually oriented, and we sort of had to do this for ourselves also to see what would work. So we looked first at the context, at the neighborhood, and you know, we saw what we all know is there, which is a diversity of building types, a variety of uses, a variety of quality and types of architecture, single family houses, you know, 6-story buildings like this one on Chevy Chase Circle, and our funky Main Street, Commercial Street. But we also recognized when we took our walk that the downturn in retail generally and the pandemic in the last 18 months has really taken a toll on our Main Street. And there's been a lot of vacancies, and it's very obvious, but we want less of this and more of this. And one of the benefits of smart growth and increased the kind of increased density that we think is appropriate here is that there'll be more residents within walking distance to fill up these spaces and ensure the health of the kind of mom and pop retailers that we all want to support here. So, excuse me. So we took a look at what's there, and again, you all are familiar with it. There's some charming, quirky stretches of low buildings. We note on these elevations that if you can see behind in the dotted lines, this is a 65-foot height superimposed on the existing conditions, which is more or less the maximum heights that are under consideration here. And that, if you compare that to the 90-foot buildings that are south of Livingston at this line, or 5333 Connecticut, which rises to 110 feet behind, you can see that really some change might come to these streets, but it's really going to be quite modest compared to even existing buildings that are already on the avenue. This is the Wells Fargo drive-in bank up near Chevy Chase Circle, the community center and library. The parking lots at Safeway, the blank walls at Safeway, the gas station. You're all familiar with this. So we took a look, we wanted to chart here a little bit of our, what guides us and what tools are available to planners to move forward. And we took as the big goals these quality of life, neighborhood character, environmental sustainability, and social equity. These are all goals that that guide Ward 3 vision. They're also the goals that came out of the Office of Planning's visioning sessions with the community, where people talked about what was important to them. And these were the big picture goals that were important. And what we lay out here, and we'll put up a link to this presentation and you can go back and look at this in more detail. And I don't want to go through it all right now, but we looked at it and we said, okay, if social equity is a goal for this neighborhood, well, what that probably means is more affordable housing. And if you want more affordable housing, you have to build more affordable housing for all ages and all income levels. And then the tactics for this site, we'll see in a minute about that focus on the community center, library redevelopment, and using city programs for other sites. Just as we felt it was helpful to just throw out where we're coming from. We think these sort of traditional city streets offer a model for the kind of development that might occur on Connecticut Avenue. It's important when you're creating streets that you have well-defined street spaces, which means you need buildings of some height on either side of the street. Most importantly, you need active and welcoming ground levels, meaning small shops, lots of entrances, lots of show windows, and human scaled elements such as storefronts and windows and balconies, those sorts of small scale elements that make a building feel human scaled and accessible. Whether the style, whether it's modern, whether it's traditional, these are the kinds of things that we think might be discussed at a small area plan level, figure out what works best for this neighborhood, and then create the kind of guidelines that will make sure that that happens over the many decades that it will take to build out these sites. So this is a map of, here's Chevy Chase Circle up here. This is the stretch of Connecticut Avenue. You can see in the overview here, just to orient you, this is the Avalon here, the community center and library over there. So that's the overview of the site, and we'll be using these maps as we go through and look at each block. So as urban designers, we wanted to have, there's usually what's called a partie or a big idea that organizers are thinking about this. And what we thought was, what we saw is that there are two sort of districts in this plan area. On the north end, we've called it the Gateway District. And we think that that's more that we would focus more public uses in those areas: the community center, the library, the Avalon, any major public space. The sites are conducive to that, and the space provided by Chevy Chase Circle underscores that. And it also there's less of a probably less of a these are less good locations for retail than the south end of the avenue, in part because there retail needs an anchor and to draw people by shop fronts, and there isn't really a way to do that here. On the south end, the Main Street district, we feel, is more retail oriented, and we would look to take advantage of the small scale, the charm of these quaint storefronts on the west side of the street, and focus more of the active retail uses at the south end. This is not a hard and fast red line between those two areas, but it's just a matter of the focus of what's done in one area versus another. So, Peter, did you want to pause a minute here and see if there are any questions in terms of our analysis of what's there, or should I just continue to go through the block by block?
Let me just invite people to put questions in the Q&A. As I said at the top of the event, we are happy to promote people onto the screen, let them speak their own questions, but purely for efficiency's sake, to allow for the presentation to finish and so forth, the most immediate way to get questions asked is to put them in the Q&A and we'll read them. I don't see any questions right now, Connie. So if there aren't any, then I think you should keep going. And then I'll renew the invitation after you finish.
Okay, sounds good. So pulling back and looking at the overview of the whole thing, we feel that these blue areas are the opportunities. They're largely parking lots or underutilized structures like the drive-through bank, and that the yellow areas here are the active retail charming streetscapes that we all want to maintain, and we're proposing that we do just that. We maintain them and focus any new development on the opportunity, the blue opportunity sites. So we start up at the north end near Chevy Chase Circle, and this is the 5700 block. To orient you, here's the Long and Foster building on the circle, the Wells Fargo drive-through bank over there, and the WMATA bus turnaround there. So we feel that on the east side, on the Wells Fargo side, actually, let me back up a minute. In all these cases, what you'll see is that we have larger buildings that are focusing on the avenue, fronting on the avenue, and then there's a step down to, for the sake of ease of description, we'll call townhouse scale, where these new developments front are adjacent to the single family house neighborhoods. And that's a theme technique that runs through all of this. So we feel there's an opportunity up at this end to create a sort of gateway of taller buildings, 65 to 75 foot even tall buildings that relate to the tall apartment building up near the church at the circle. We think that a creative team can figure out how to build around and incorporate the WMATA bus turnaround into a new development. And again, as I said, on the west side, there's Wells Fargo creates an opportunity to for new development that steps down. In virtually all these cases, parking is underground. So that's just sort of a given. In general, in this north side, I had mentioned that we feel that it's more public and not retail, public uses. So we're thinking that as these buildings are developed, what the community should do is insist on ground floor uses that are more public uses, perhaps a Chevy Chase History Center, a city services concierge, offices for Chevy Chase Main Street, obviously the library, post office, offices for the ANC, those sorts of things that don't have to be successful to pay their rent the way a retail shop might have to, but still can generate pedestrian activity in the neighborhood. And as these buildings are built, especially if they're built as planned unit developments, PUDs, that offers the community the opportunity to negotiate with the developer to get space for those uses at free or at very good prices to make it all financially feasible. Moving south, the 5600 block, which on one side is the Avalon and the Magruder's, the parking lot behind Magruder's, and on the other side is the Library and Community Center. We think the Library and Community Center offers a prime opportunity for redevelopment, for what's called co-development, where residential uses can be combined with a new library and new community center in a sort of campus setting to become sort of the heart of the community. The nuance here is that since the district owns all of those, owns this land and owns those buildings, it can become a partner and create a situation where this could be maybe even 100% affordable housing, and be go a long way to providing additional affordable housing units, which are so lacking in what's called Rock Creek West. This kind of co-development now is a thing. It's happened in multiple sites in Chicago and in New York, and it's been very successful a very successful way of leveraging city assets to gain affordable housing. On the other side of the street, on the Avalon side of the street, there might be some miscellaneous, renovation or addition to some of these nondescript buildings, but the Avalon is protected. Nothing's going to happen to the Avalon. We're saying basically leave this alone, but figure out a way to build townhouse kind of development where the parking lot is, maybe put some of the parking underground, but there's an opportunity to do that there that's would improve all these streets. Excuse me. The 5500 block is the CVS and CVS's parking lot, the diner in the corner here. May it rest in peace. And across the street, Safeway with its big parking lot. We think the Safeway can be become part of a new development here, again, that is taller on the avenue and steps down along the side street with parking underground and Safeway as part of the development. Grocery stores, Safeway and Trader Joe's and all Wegmans, they all know how to become part of urban mixed-use projects now. So it's not a pipe dream at all. It's something they're all very used to doing. On the other side of the street, we think the CVS and its parking lot is probably a good development site for a modest, 4-story kind of building, maybe some live work units, maybe 2-over-2 condominiums, that sort of multifamily, modest scale. The 5400 block, this is the PNC Bank here with its parking lot. And again, we think the parking lot, an addition in the parking lot to PNC, maybe thinking of that all as one development site is an opportunity. I skipped over, but and the other side of the street where Blue 44 and the gas station are is again another opportunity to be like 65 feet, 5 or 6 stories, recognizing that just south of there, these existing buildings go up to 90 feet. So it's these are modest new buildings. So if you take a look at the whole thing, pulling up and getting the bird's eye view. Taller buildings, creating a gateway, a co-development development at the library, perhaps with a public space that's sort of the heart of the community, a public space in the front, and maybe some more active recreation space behind. The creation of a sort of boulevard feeling now with this with the wide sidewalk and the streets being well defined by new buildings on the east, and on the west side, a combination of the occasional new building, but basically maintaining the same character and even the same facades and buildings as exist now. There's more to come. There's other studies that need to be done. And just to sum up one part of it, because I know those of you who've been following these issues know that affordable housing is a big priority for the city and for the community. The ANC has made that clear. There is in this scheme, there's probably at full build out, there's if the community center library campus is 100% affordable, and all the rest of it is done in standard development ways, private developer development. There's probably about 230 units of affordable housing in this full build out, and another 500 or so market rate units. And I can speak in more detail to how that happens if anybody wants. But anyway, that's what we've been doing. And as Ellen says, it's not really a plan. It's identifying the opportunity sites and having a few thoughts about how they might be built up. And the takeaway from our point of view is this is a modest intervention into the neighborhood. It ain't Bethesda, it ain't Manhattan. Peter, you're muted.
Yep, got it. I got it. So thank you for the presentation. Let me ask a leading question and for either of the panelists. And that is, why change it all? We have a stable community here. People have characterized it as a village in the city. Why change it all?
You know, there's lots of answers to that. They range from the environmental answer, which is that in terms of climate change, there is an imperative to build more in transit-rich locations to avoid sprawl, because growth is real. And if you don't build here, it gets built somewhere else. And that somewhere else is often far out Loudoun, far out Montgomery, etc. And sprawl is one of the main contributors to global warming. Another is social equity. which is there is a crisis of housing affordability in the city, and building more housing is one way of creating more affordable housing and a way of increasing supply to meet the housing affordability crisis. Another is that there, I don't know how to say this. You know, it is a village. It's a village. It's a bunch of parking lots, and has a 1 block stretch or 2 block stretch that is pleasant to walk down, and the rest is a nightmare. This, we believe that this sort of development over time is an improvement over what's here now. I mean, Ellen,
And
I'm
let
sure
me-
you can add.
Want to add to that?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, right now, basically Chevy Chase is a monoculture. We have single family houses and people that can afford the single family house. And a little further down Connecticut, we get more variety because we have the apartment buildings. But for people like me that would like to downsize, there are very few opportunities to stay in the neighborhood. For my adult children who would like to move here, there are very few opportunities. So what we're proposing is that we expand the range of choices, and that we expand the range of choices for the retail, so that we have more customers within an easy walking distance of Connecticut Avenue, so that our retail businesses can thrive. Because right now there's a lot that aren't really thriving. I should add, I'm not sure if that was fully understood from Ron's presentation, that this is not the particular architectural style we're talking about, but we were using a design program that doesn't give you a lot of options. So these buildings would be far more interesting and more tailored to the character of the neighborhood. That's one of the things that we hope people will do as part of the charrette, is that in the end, in the small area plan, will come out with design guidelines for what new construction should look like in the Chevy Chase Gateway area.
So Connie, do you want to take a few questions from the Q&A?
Yeah, I can. So Evelyn Wren is saying to you, Ron, in looking at your slide, that PNC Bank and Blue 44 are not on the 5400 block. They're on the 5500 block. And maybe you want to go to that slide and just double check if that's true. And if it is, then you can correct it before you send the link out.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So I will check that we have our 100 blocks right.
Okay, and then another question from Edwina Smith. In your plan, is parking provided for those of us who live in Ward 4 but shop in this Connecticut Avenue area, especially at the library, Avalon, etc.? Is street parking still available in your plan?
The majority of parking in these redeveloped blocks would be moved to underground lots. The extent to which there is curbside parking, say along Connecticut Avenue, would come out of additional studies that really need to follow the small area plan, that look at the best use of the street space. A lot of people like curbside parking for both the convenience for people who are traveling over here who are not walking here, But it also is a way of protecting sidewalk uses like sidewalk cafes, separating them from the busy noise of the street. And there are even a lot of plans these days that put bike lanes between the sidewalk and the parked cars, and then leave parked cars to buffer the bike lanes and the pedestrian areas. So parking would be part of follow-up studies that probably DDOT would take the lead in.
You have other questions, Connie?
Yeah, there's more. So Stuart, who's attended several of the information exchange panel sessions, asks, please define what we mean by affordable housing in this context, both square footage and pricing. The gentleman who lives in the affordable housing at 5333 did not find the size adequate. So I want to say that that Eric Spencer, who was a part of the September 30th panel session, information exchange panel session, who lives at 5333, was able to, he said, win the lottery. He was able to move into an apartment there because of IZ zoning. And when asked whether or not, someone asked during that conversation whether or not he could afford to purchase and sort of size of the places, and not just for him, but the other three high-rise residents were asked that question. They said that for certainly Lorraine, Maria Sims, who is the president of the Tenants Association, said that for many families, couples have moved in, they had their first child, they could still stay there, rent there. And then when they had their second child, they were both sized out, meaning there was not enough housing. And so I think this question is, what do you mean, what does Ward 3 vision mean about the affordable housing? And did you look at square footage and pricing? And will we have adequate space for some families who want more than just 1 or 2 bedrooms?
And so once you answer that, I point out that somebody's raised their hand. So after the answer, why don't we turn to that person? Go ahead, Ron or Helen.
Okay, if you're gonna bear with me a minute, I'm gonna put something up that is way too nerdy and wonky, but it will answer the question. So here's part of your answer. This section here, the top, is the income and rental schedule from inclusionary zoning. Okay. And
Ron, it's not
Oh, you're not
showing up
seeing
on the
You have to
screen.
like kind of shake it a little, like your pointer disappears. Okay, there it is.
can you see the
You have to move it a little so people can see it. Yeah,
No, but
No,
you're talking about your
cursor.
another.
oh, can you see the spreadsheet that I have up?
No,
No.
it's not.
Oh,
it's
okay,
not
then I'll
showing
have to
up.
talk. Never mind. I'll talk through it.
Or maybe you can.
Okay, I would just
reduce?
talk through it, but the affordable housing, it is for it's tied to the median family income in the metropolitan area, which for a family of 4 is $129,000. And the rents that they pay are the maximum rent that they can be charged in affordable housing is 30% of their income, as adjusted by some utilities and such. But basically, it's 30% of that. So that family of 4, if they move into a 3-bedroom apartment, it's going to pay, depending upon their income level. Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm not explaining this well. The median family income for a family of four is 129,000. Affordable housing is provided based on a family's whether they are X% of that median family income. So there might,
Less and less.
yes. So for inclusionary zoning, which is what's required of market rate projects, they have to provide units at 50, 60, and 80% of median family income. So that would mean at 50% of median family income, that family of four is paying $1,800 or excuse me, they're paying $1,600 for their 3-bedroom apartment.
And Ron, just talk about the size of these apartments.
Ellen, correct me if I'm wrong. The size of units under inclusionary zoning, which is what which is the affordable units that a market rate building has to provide, have to be the same sizes in the same proportion unit mix as in the market rate part of the building. So that if it's a building of studios, then the affordable units are going to be studios. If it's a upscale 3-bedroom luxury condo, then there's going to be affordable units that are the same big size 3 bedrooms and all. Those are the rules that are out there right now. And I say that because recognize that most of the projects that will be done along the avenue will probably be done as part of plan unit development or upzonings, which means that the developer will come in with a proposal and they're going to say, I want to do this. And the community at that point has the opportunity to say, well, we don't think, we don't want studio affordable units in our community. We want families. So we want 2-bedroom units rather than studios to be provided. And then we get into a back and forth and you negotiate. So, you know, that's how the market rate would go. On the residential buildings that we're thinking will probably be 100% affordable at the community center and library, they can be whatever size, whatever number of bedrooms we and the city decide they should be, because we will have a lot more control over that product than over the negotiated product from the market rate.
Okay. Can I just interject a question here, and then I think we ought to go back to either the Q&As or the hand raise. To the points you're making, Ron, I mean, this was an exercise. So my memory of what you said was that you used a kind of 900 square foot kind of average to do this exercise. This is not either an official plan of OP or something you're proposing to build tomorrow. So, I mean, I think, am I right about that? There was sort of.
When I gave you, the numbers I had referred to earlier, approximately 230 units of affordable, 500 and some of market rate. What I assumed for that to get those numbers is that the affordable units that were provided would be an average of 900 square feet, which is larger than you would find downtown in a studio type building. And as a 900-foot average, that means there's some 700 footers and there's some 1,200 footers, and so that provides for a range of unit sizes.
Let me just ask this question before we go on. At several points during your presentation, you talked about this being a modest addition to the community. I leafleted for this event, and so I am vividly aware of the number of housing units in my single member district. At the maximum, it's 700 units, including the apartments. And I assume, since the SMDs are supposed to be basically the same size, that's true of Commissioner Chang's SMD. So if the numbers, if I do the addition right, this proposal, this vision is talking about adding a third again as many people to these two SMDs. Is that a fair take?
I mean, the math may be correct, but let me, by way of example of why I refer to this as modest, as you know, because we talked about it a little bit, there's a proposal before ANC 3E right now to replace Maggiano's and the couple of retail stores that are in that stretch between the pavilion and the corner office building. So one building on Wisconsin Avenue there is going to have 375 units of housing. That's a fairly serious, significant building. That's one building. Here we're talking about over these, 8 blocks of having, not a heck of a lot more than that. That's why I think of it as modest, because any one of these buildings is 50 units, 40 units, that sort of thing. Those are modest interventions in a neighborhood.
Connie,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
there's some of the comments in the chat were talking about the adverse impacts of building something like 5330. That's, as Ron said, that's over 100-foot tall building. We're talking about a maximum height of 65 feet. That's one of the things that makes it modest. Also, Peter, when you talk about 700 residents or 700 units, I don't know if you're including in a block like mine, the 3900 block of Morrison Street, there are any number of illegal basement apartment units and those exist. I know when I walk my dog down the alley, I see that those exist on blocks all over our neighborhood. Hopefully the ADU laws will be modulated some so that people are freer to make those units legal units, but there's more density to our neighborhood than is immediately clear, but still not the variety of choices that a variety of people who would like to live in this neighborhood would need to see in order to be able to afford it. And, those people would make great neighbors. This concern that we need to have a village feel and everything has to be just like it is overlooks the fact that there are people who don't have a typical family living in a large single family house who also would make great neighbors, who would be great citizens, who would be great retail customers, who would be great participants in the civic life of our neighborhood. And right now they are closed out from being able to be part of Chevy Chase. And I don't know why we would not want to welcome a more diverse set of people to our neighborhood.
Okay. Connie, do you want to elevate G?
Sure.
Or do you want to do a question?
Gail put a question in the Q&A on what kind of density will this produce, but she's also put her hand up. So I think I will elevate. No, that's a different person. There's one's G. Schmidt. Sorry. I will elevate G. Schmidt. If you keep your hand up, okay, let's elevate.
And you're gonna give video?
Yes, this person, yes, they can talk now. They're on video,
You're on mute, though.
no longer.
Well, this is G. Schmidt, and I did not put my hand up.
Okay, your hand was up though.
So right down at the bottom is click that button and turn it off.
But I would like to say that I fully support what Ellen has said, and I know there's a lot of chat here that says that nobody wants the neighborhood to change, and they love these ugly parking lots that we have, this blacktop that's out there, and I don't love them. And I think the alternatives are attractive, and that change is essential to this neighborhood in order to preserve it, not just to save it. I mean, we have to do a better job of being a better part of the city. This particular plan is a brave thing for you guys to step out, put your hand up, and let everybody shoot at it, and that's fine. But we should not ignore the fact that what we're heading for is something that will make for a better Chevy Chase. That's all I have to say.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do you have other questions, Connie?
Yes, I do. I will read them out now. So Gail Kelleher said, what kind of density will this produce? There's no elaboration on that question.
You know, I'm not sure exactly how to answer that. I think that, you know, we looked earlier for better or worse here. Hold on. At, you know, structures like this. So if the question can be answered qualitatively, it's this sort of thing. I think that we think will happen on the east side. On the west side, it's going to be pretty much what it is now.
Okay, so here's another question. It seems like parking is a very important topic tonight. So Rick and Stuart both talk about parking. Rick says, have you considered a parking building off the avenue on the Montgomery County model, which is low cost and very open to accommodate people who work on the avenue and shop or eat there? Well, that is true. There are employees of our local businesses who are finding it difficult to find parking, you know, because they don't live here. Stuart also asks, as we talk about design, access, and parking, please remember not all of us can use bikes or even buses. My wife is disabled and can't even always walk a few blocks due to chronic pain. Buses are untenable. She's friends with a number of residents at Knollwood. Parking is pivotal to their access to our retail and restaurants here. They are so sensitive to parking access that they would go to the diner in Arugula regularly, mostly for lunch, but had never been to the Parthenon because the nearby parking they find much more unreliable. The loss of the diner in Arugula has meant that rather than coming over for meals multiple times a week, they almost never do, even pre-pandemic. That also means they don't pop into the adjacent shops either. So those are two questions about parking.
You know, again, I think that as the two things. In general, I think as the kinds of buildings that are on the avenue urbanize a little bit, then underground parking will become more user-friendly and less intimidating than it might be. There's also the opportunity, as I said, in these PUD situations and these negotiations with developers to make sure that parking is available for the retail uses that are in the neighborhood. As far as a parking garage, in general, I don't see that there is going to be the kind of concentration of retail uses high volume retail uses in this area that there is in Bethesda that justifies the Bethesda garage.
Boy, oh boy, do they
But-
make money off them.
Well, let me also add, if you think about commercial areas that are denser than what Chevy Chase is now, think about how retailers adjusted during the pandemic. They switched to carry out and pick up right at the curb. If some of the parking lots were to be redeveloped, presumably the restaurants then get pretty good at offering valet parking right out front. And it's the valets that go put the cars in the underground parking, and the customers, any disabled customers, could walk right into the restaurant. The retailers like CVS now with prescriptions will get better at offering delivery service for customers who might have issues with lower amounts of parking. It's not like everything else will stay the same and only the new buildings will go up. People adjust over time. That's the way cities work. They're incredibly versatile in that respect. And I suspect that would be the case with our neighborhood as well.
You know, Ellen makes a great point. And it may be that Chevy Chase Main Street would need to be involved, and maybe there's some sort of neighborhood valet service or something along those lines that can facilitate this for both the retailers and the drivers.
Let's try to get as many questions as we can in.
Okay, yeah, so there's, another question from Michelle Wolin who says, will the underground parking be free or will people have to pay for it? Hard to imagine the landlords providing it for free. So those are all, I guess, details about that. I mean, people are very concerned, and that's something that we'll have to consider, with Main Street's, Chevy Chase Main Street's help and the commission focusing attention on that. Okay, so here's another one, another question. These two are the same. Anonymous attendee. Multiple units are planned for Ma's Gallery as well as behind the Lisner home. That is going to add a lot of living space to the area. Why does every neighborhood need to be dense? And Mary Rouse asks, Ron, where did those photos come from? Columbia Heights? Are you suggesting Chevy Chase should become Columbia Heights?
The photos came from a number of different places, including some even scarier than Columbia Heights, Mary. One of them's even from Rockville Town Center. No one is saying this is going to look like Columbia Heights. We're just trying to talk about the scale and the potential style of new development.
Okay, and I think this last one is a comment. I think there's two comments. One is that Mr. Schmitz, when he was elevated as a panelist, Rick says, I fully concur with the last live commenter. So that's that. Are there any other questions? I mean, it's 8:03. We have both Ellen and Ron here. This is our opportunity. If there's anything that's not clear, anything that you really want to talk about the vision that they put forward in terms of opportunity sites and so forth, here's your chance. We try not to extend it too long, so that because it is recorded and others will listen. But please put your questions in the Q&A, and we'll continue to address them.
And let me ask one in the meantime, and that is, we've talked a lot about zoning. You've talked a lot about massing of buildings. What's most loved here is the avenue. What's the feel going to be on the avenue if you have buildings of this size? What'll it be like?
Well, I think I can respond to that a little bit, Peter.
And just curved Connecticut Avenue. I don't know if you're. What did you do?
I'll respond to it in two ways. One is to talk about the design charrette that's coming up. But I would preface that by saying that, in my view, other than in large part getting more housing and affordable housing on the avenue, I think everything I showed you is less important than what happens in the street, as far as the experience of our neighborhood by our neighbors. And that part of that can be addressed in the upcoming design charrettes. And for those of you who don't know, just little known fact, the design charrette, the name comes from back in the 19th century when, or early 20th century, when every architect worth his salt went to the École des Beaux-Arts in France to study. And at the end of every semester, they had to bring their giant, beautiful drawings. And if you've ever seen drawings from that time, you'll know what I'm talking about. They would put them on a cart and bring them to the professor's studio. And being students, as Ellen can attest, because she teaches these people, they don't finish on time. So they get a whole bunch of students who would help each other working on finishing up these drawings in the cart as the cart was being dragged to the studio. And the cart being the charrette. That became the name for the kind of effort that hopefully will take place with OP, where everybody's gathered around drawings together, working on a vision for the community. And hopefully we'll get to do this in person together. It can be a very exciting and even joyful kind of experience. So that'll be the design charrette. So what kind of things might the design charrette do? My hope is that it'll focus in large part not on whether a building is 47 feet tall or 60 feet tall or whatever, but focus on the street. Because as St. Jane Jacobs said, whoop, I don't know what happened here.
I found your slides, so I'm putting.
Okay, you get your visuals just saved. Just so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as Jane Jacobs said, streets are the key to life in the city. So what kind of things could be studied? I mean, here's a couple of quick ideas for the kinds of things to be studied. This is 34th Street in New York, where the planners or the community looked at it and identified about a dozen different problems in this street. Crosswalks, or it takes too long to cross the street. There's too many trash cans. The buses get caught in traffic, whatever. And came up with a bunch of modest improvements that doing nothing other than the community identifying the problems and then coming up with solutions like bus lanes, dedicated bus lanes and dedicated bike lanes. I seem to have lost my, my cursor. Oh, there we go. You can see here, dedicated bus lanes here, bike lanes, wider sidewalks, shorter crosswalks. They identified a bunch of really mundane things that created a much better environment. You can also come up with little things like how to use sign, how do you do wayfinding in your neighborhood in a way that's meaningful and can encourage walking. You can see here on the bottom this is what I was talking about cars, providing a buffer between parked cars, providing a buffer between moving cars and bike lanes and the sidewalk. This change in Brooklyn, as the caption says, it improves safety for everybody without reducing car throughput. The design charrette can also start to look at what kind of places there would be for the community to gather, what kind of uses happen at the ground floor, how do you encourage uses that spill out onto the sidewalk and make this make the public space a really happy place for the community to be in.
So let me just break in here and just ask, is there one more really incisive question that we need to get before these two people, before we wrap it up tonight? Connie?
No, I think that some of these other ones are comments, and I think that we can type in some answers if we want to. We've been asked about like plan for infrastructure, sewer and water, and so forth. Someone else asked about, why call this a gateway to DC? Is one of many ways to enter the city, and to me, the Memorial Bridge is a gateway to the city. That gateway idea was it came from, I think, the commission itself a few years back, looking at travelers, south on Connecticut Avenue, going around Chevy Chase Circle, the Fountain, and coming into the city, coming into the district, and calling it the Chevy Chase Gateway. I think that idea came from that. And then some other comments. But since we don't have that much time, I do want to mention that the Office of Planning has community walks that 3 days of community walks where they would like for residents to sign up, and you should go to publicinput.com/Chevy Chase to sign up for one of 3 days. One is this Saturday, November 20th from 11 to 12:30 p.m. The next opportunity is Wednesday, December 8th from 12 to 1:30 p.m. And then the third one is Saturday, December 11th from 11 to 12:30 p.m. Those dates and times are on the dedicated Chevy Chase Small Area Plan website, publicinput.com/Chevy Chase. So please sign up. After that, in December, for about 6 weeks, the Office of Planning said that they would put out a design survey. And there's no details. I don't know what that's going to look like, but the idea is to get input from the community. And then sometime in February, I think, that design charrette that Ron mentioned, after they get input from us, likely they'll put together some visuals so that our community can respond to it. So you guys are well ahead in providing us some visuals so that we can respond to this, to kind of tee us up in terms of our thinking. So I really appreciate that, Ron, Ellen, and Matt Bell. I mean, that's a lot of work. But I do want the community to know that there's a small area planning process coming up. And also, please hold Thursday, December 2nd. That will be the 7th information exchange session that the ANC 34G has hosted. Details will be forthcoming, but we hosted 6 sessions, and if you are not familiar with it and haven't joined, please just go to our website. It's right up there. Look for it, the information exchange session. Click on any of the ones that are listed, and at the bottom of that, you'll see a link to all of it with the video recording, the Q&A, and so forth. This is just to try to engage you, involve you in thinking about some topics, and so that we can really participate more actively when the time comes in each of these instances, right, with the design survey and so forth. Sorry, Peter.
Yeah, and let me add my thanks to Ellen and Ron. I expect as a single commissioner to sponsor some further sessions myself, which I will be announcing. With regard to these tours, just so that people are aware, it's not a city agency giving us a tour of our own neighborhood. The idea, at least as promised by OP, is that they're going to talk about where they see opportunities for change and what kind of change, so that people will have in front of them the where of and some sense of what it is they're proposing or they may propose. So, and with that, let me say, these sessions, sort of the information sessions that the whole ANC sponsored, had a sort of interesting coda to them, which is some people stayed around and chatted it up. I think that we ought to end the recording and say that, wrap it up with thanks to Ellen and Ron for their presentation of their vision of what the community would look like over the next 30 years. Seems reasonable.
Yes.
Oh, and Connie, it looks like Blair Lansbury is asking for you to say the website
I
again.
did. I put it in the chat. It's
Okay.
publicinput.com/Chevy Chase. So that's the Office of Planning. They put up a dedicated website. It has everything on there. So it has all of the prior springtime visioning workshops, all of the kind of big, like little, the handwritten notes, you know, that they have there, everything. So please go there.
Okay.
And then Stuart is asking me, where are the links? I'm so sorry. I've had so much trouble going and copying and pasting onto the chat. I've not been able to do it this entire time. I'm not sure exactly what's going on. But if you go to our website, anc3g.org, you will find on the What's New side, on the left side, just click on any of it that says ANC hosted information exchange. Just go to the 6th one. And when you double click on that, you'll see the video and everything. And on the bottom, it says, here's a link to all the rest. So then it'll have a page that lists all 6 with the titles, the speakers. And for Ellen also spoke with, you spoke with, I'm losing my train of thought here. The others with Matt Bell, and Ellen provided some resources, so some documents to look at after that. So that's also on the page. I've tried to include as much as I can on the website. So please look there and, you know, look around, and all of the meetings, all of our public meetings are on there as well. And you know, sign up for the ANC email distribution list. We try not to bombard people, but we do post when there's
We do bombard
and so forth. Yeah, yeah.
And you could, as the person who posts all the video, there are video of all these sessions. And if you just do Google ANC3G YouTube, you will get our entire set of, you know, we'll do it as an anniversary set or hits, whatever.
Getting funny.
Anyways,
Time
Okay,
Life
okay.
books.
I think we ought to end the
I'm
recording.
going to end the recording. Thank you
all
everyone for
coming. Thank you
attending.
all. Yeah. Great.